2 weeks ago, we were honored to be featured on 680 News in Toronto. And one of the things I said that really hit the interviewer was, I said, we're never really fully alive until we start living for other people. It's so easy to live for ourselves, right? So easy. You know, Jesus said to love your neighbor as you love yourself. I don't know about you, but I love myself a lot. Right? And imagine if we could live that way, loving other people. And so I'm hoping that I can instill a little bit of that missional heart into you. And even though you may not be able to physically go, your prayers can go, your dollars can go, and your heart can go. So I want to share a little message this morning, and then an update about what we're doing in Liberia and West Africa. Of all the places in the world, you know, one of the biggest mistakes we make as pastors is we say, Lord, never send me to wherever it is, and guess what? That's where He sends you.
Hawaii.
That's exactly what I was going to say. For my next calling, Lord, I do not want to go to Hawaii. It's awful. I don't want to go. But often, that's where we end up going. And of all the places in the world, I can't believe that I'm there. In fact, I'm going back in 8 days. Today's the 7th? No, in 11 days. I'm going back on the 18th, and I just can't wait to go. And when you see what we're doing and what God is doing, you're going to understand why I want to go back there. So this morning I want to share a little bit with you about not missing the moment. Because every moment causes the next moment, which causes the next moment, which leads us to where we are today. And if we miss the moment, we can miss that momentum that's supposed to carry us to where we want to go. And sometimes we say no because it's not convenient. Sometimes we say no because it's too costly. I'm not talking just financially, about moving or just making a change in your life. And so this morning I want to encourage you about jumping on that moment. I mean, let's be honest. We've all had moments in our lives where when that thing happened, you knew something changed. Have you ever had that? Maybe you didn't even know it at the time, but there was a moment, something took place, and you said, wow, life is going to be different now. Now, sometimes there's bad moments where your life has changed irrevocably. But other times, it's a good change, or it's a different change, whatever it is. I want us to be able to understand that we're in a moment. And I want to talk about the first moment that I can remember where something significant happened in my life. I wasn't raised in a church. It's great to see these kids going off to church, singing deep and wide. I had the actions all backwards. But I didn't have that luxury of growing up in a church, and I was really as far away from God as you could get as a 15, 16, 17-year-old. But towards the end of my teen years, you might not be able to tell by looking at me, but I'm actually a really big fan of heavy rock and roll music. So that deep and wide song really stretched me this morning. That was hard to sing publicly, I gotta tell you. And so I grew up in this world, and the darker the music was, the more I was attracted to it. The more sinister it was, this is the person that I had become, the more my heart was attracted to it. But when I was 17 years old, I heard about, can you believe this? A Christian heavy metal band. Come on, if I say something new this morning, go, wow. What'd you say?
Wow. I heard them.
Okay, I thought somebody said a band name. In 1987, I was introduced to a band called Striper. Anybody remember Striper? And in 1987, I listened to one of their records, and I heard a song called The Rock That Makes Me Roll. So you can have His power in your soul. And I remember looking at these guys going, wow, they look so cool, and they're serving God. I want to do that. And at 17 years old, at my bedside, I gave my heart to Jesus. And now here we are, many, many years later, more than 30 years later. I'm now the band pastor. And I'm the guy with short hair on the right. And that was a moment that changed the trajectory of my life. I was going towards darkness, and like the Bible says, He called me out of the darkness into His wonderful light, and I've never looked back. But that was a moment that changed my life. The next major moment in my life is when I met and married the most beautiful woman in the world, Karen. And anyone who's ever gotten married, you know, that's a moment. That's when your life changes and things begin to go in a different direction. And then a few years later, the next moment was when we had our first baby, our daughter Caitlin, who's married now. And when you have a baby, that's a moment. It's a moment that creates many other moments, right? And just when I thought our life couldn't get any better, we had our second child a couple of years later, our son Daniel. And he lives out in Cape Breton Island now, in Glace Bay, as far east as you can go in this country on land, before you hit good old Newfoundland. And when we had our children, those were moments that shaped me, turned me into a father, changed my priorities, changed my heart, changed what I wanted out of life. Anybody can relate to having moments? Yeah? In 2002, I remember having a big moment when I went to Israel for the first time. And that moment changed everything for me. Has anybody here ever been to Israel? Let me see, there's a couple. How many have not been to Israel but would like to go someday? Okay. I mean, we have to see what happens. Our tours have been canceled 4 times because of COVID. We're set to go in March. Who knows? God willing, we'll be able to go. But there's some information on a little table at the back if you're even considering going to Israel. But when I went to Israel, it changed my life. It changed the way I saw our God. I'm going to talk about that tonight. When I got to Israel, I didn't realize, it's going to sound silly now, there's a lot of Jewish people in Israel. I said, wow, there's a lot of you here. And then it hit me, hang on a second, Jesus was born here. He lived here. These people and their culture shaped him, not my culture. Jesus never went to church a day in his life, but he went to synagogue. And so having to understand the culture in which he grew up in really began to shape and change my life. And again, tonight at 6 o'clock, we're going to talk about that. But this was the first time, I'll never forget it, I was coming out of the empty tomb of Jesus. And in modern times, the way they've excavated it, to get out of the tomb, you have to step up, one, and then grab on the wall and kind of come out. And I remember putting my hand on that wall, realizing, oh, God in heaven. Could you imagine 2,000 years ago, his hand was on this wall as he came out of this tomb. It was a moment. And I didn't realize it at the time. I just thought it was really cool. But I didn't realize that God was birthing me and launching me into a whole new ministry and season of life.
Glory to God.
And because of that, I began to travel all around the world, teaching and preaching this message of who Jesus really was and how we really can understand his word. I'm going to say tonight some things that are going to maybe freak you out a little bit and push you a little bit, and that's good. Some of you need to be pushed. I won't push you over the cliff, but I'll bring you right to the edge. So please, don't miss out tonight. And so I was able to travel and teach and write about it and be on TV, and it just really changed my life. And I was doing really well. I was the daily host of 100 Huntley Street. You guys know that show? It was a blessing to follow after David Maines, to get his blessing to do that show. And then I was brought on staff at one of the largest churches in our country, and things were good. I was telling Pastor Mike before the service, I was standing up on the stage, very, very big place. There was a lot of people coming every week. A lot of people were watching the TV show. And I remember saying, God, I don't know if they're here for me or for you. And I remember that scared me. And so my prayer was, Lord, whatever I do next, it has to be something that I can't do without you. No more easy, no more simple. Make me as uncomfortable as you want. That's a really dangerous prayer. I said, God, I want people to look at it and say, whoa, look at what God is doing, not look at what Joe is doing. I'm so sick of that. And God honored that prayer. He sent me to a part of the world where it's really, really hard to minister in. Where there's nothing in it for you. Nobody knows your name. No one cares who you are or what you've done. When you get there, it's a blank slate. Started all over again. And of all the places in the world, God sends this guy from Milton to Africa. Do I look like I fit in Africa? Now, God could have called me to South Africa. I'd probably fit in there. There's a little bit of money there. You could probably make a living in South Africa. Or maybe somewhere in East Africa, like in, let's pick a country. Oh, Tanzania, Kenya, Mozambique, all these places there's industry there. But God said, no, I want to send you to West Africa, to the other side of the country. I said, okay. And so this is where the area that I'm in. But there's this little country down here called Liberia. And it's constantly ranked by the UN and the World Health Organization and UNICEF as one of the top 3 poorest countries in the world. The average person lives off of $1.25 a day. The reality is they're not even making that now. COVID has affected even the culture and the economy there. So God calls me to this country that I've never heard of. How many have ever heard of Liberia before today? Yeah, that's a lot more than I thought. I thought he said Libya. Right? No, Liberia. The country that went through back-to-back civil wars where 400,000 people were slaughtered, where the infrastructure of the country is set back decades, where the poverty is so bad, the moment you get off a plane, you see it. You smell it, you taste it, you touch it, it's there, it's everywhere. And this is where God called me. People have been asking me, Joe, how in the world did you go from Israel to Liberia? That's quite a twist, isn't it? Well, the answer is this guy here. This is Pastor Sam Abel Binse. And he's a guy who just started liking my videos on YouTube, started following me on Facebook, and I could tell he was new because whenever somebody new follows you, you'll get 30, 40, 50, 60 notifications from them because they go back and they like everything you've ever posted. That's what this guy was doing. Sam Binse, Sam Binse. I'm like, who is Sam Binse and why is he liking all my stuff? And then, out of the blue, he posted a comment. I think it was on YouTube, and he said, Pastor Joe, we really need your teaching in Liberia. And I said, oh, that's nice, right? I've been invited to India, to Japan, to Kenya, lots of countries, but I've never gone. I just didn't feel to go. So I said, oh, that's nice. And I said, oh, maybe one day. That was the polite Canadian in me. I didn't mean it, Like, when you see somebody that you haven't seen in a long time, hey, we should grab a coffee soon. You don't mean it. But it's the nice thing to say, right? Joe, you should come to the poorest country in the world. I said, sure, one day. Well, Sam took it as a challenge. And he said, when? What day? When can you come? I said, Karen, this guy's serious. He wants me to go. And so we Googled Liberia. And she said to me, Joe, you go where God tells you to go, but just really pray about going. It's a really dangerous country. There's kidnappings, there's shootings, there's murders, there's, people will do anything when they're poor. And so we began to pray, we began to talk about it, and Sam said something to me that was really striking. He said, Pastor Joe, the people of Liberia are not stupid. It's just that no one will come here and teach because there's no money in it. He said, the church here is dying for information, but nobody will come. And most of us can't watch YouTube because we don't have cell phones and we can't afford to pay money for data. If we have to choose between watching a Joe Amaral video or buying rice for our families, guess what we do? So no one can afford to bring you over here, but would you consider coming? And to cut a very long story short, I went on Facebook and I said, hey guys, I've been invited to go to this country. My son and I want to go. It's going to cost X amount of dollars. I think it was $2,000 or $3,000 that we're going to need for tickets and stuff, and, to go. And within 2 days, all the money came in over Facebook. People just started pouring out love and sending in money. We didn't have a charity, nothing like that. They just said go. And when we went, we decided to bring some basic humanitarian aid, like just things like, well, soccer balls are a must in Africa. If you're wondering why they're there. Not hockey pucks, soccer balls. And toothpaste. It was awesome going to Walmart and just cleaning them out of all their toothbrushes. You know how good that felt? Like you see in the movies where they throw everything into a cart, that was me. I felt like a boss. I walked in and we bought hundreds of toothbrushes and toothpaste and bars of soap and sanitary things for women, and we bought booklets and crayons, all kinds of stuff, and we brought 7 suitcases in all on that first trip. And I'll never forget getting off that plane and going into communities that I'd only seen on television, on documentaries, and driving 3-4 hours into the jungle to visit villages who have never received, never mind a Caucasian visitor, they've never received a visitor at all. And going there with bags of rice and bales of clothing for the children, and just being with them, connecting with them, loving them, treating them like the human beings that they are. I tell you, God began to break my heart. I've never cried more than in the past 2 years in all my life. I would always consider myself to be a tough guy. Growing up in downtown Toronto, tough guy. Now I weep like a baby. I'm going to try to get through the pictures, even when I was preparing the PowerPoint. It was hard to get through the pictures. But let me just show you a little bit of what I've seen, and let me instill in you a heart to serve others. This is the community that we first started serving in. This is called Painesville, just outside the capital. And this is the school. And then this is the church in the back. And this is a very, very typical road in Liberia. We use the word road loosely. They're dirt roads that cars have gone over in time and eventually carve out a path. And when it rains, you see these potholes. They can be as deep as the wheels of a motorcycle. And you never know what you're going to get. And so this is where we began to serve and just began to love the people and began to reach out. And when I came back to Canada, I had a vision in my heart. I wanted to do something for this country. Now, we've been to Australia, we've been to Mexico, we've been to England, Italy, Thailand, Singapore, Malaysia, Hong Kong, China. I've been all over the world, and I've never had a desire to live in that country. I never really had a desire to go back and do something humanitarian-wise for that country. But when I came back to Canada, I went to speak in Kingston, Ontario. And I don't know if it was the jet lag, because I'd only been back a few days and, kind of in and out of sleep and trying to get things straight in my head. And as I was waking up, I had a vision. And in this vision, I was on the ground. And it was almost like sitting on a little helicopter or a drone. And I just started to go up and up and up, and I started to see green space and more green space and more green space. And I remember seeing a main road. And I felt that God wanted me to start something on a piece of property. And so I called Pastor Sam and I said, look for 5 acres on the main road. And he said, Pastor Joe, that's impossible. Everybody only wants to sell you little plots of land on these little side roads. I said, no, Sam, right on the main road, because what we're going to do is going to impact the country. It's got to be accessible by everyone. And so Sam went to town, and he found us beautiful piece of property. You see the area here? And so we own kind of all the way like here. Today there's 5 acres, and look, there's the main road that runs through Liberia, through the whole country. We needed $50,000 to buy that land. Anybody got $50,000 sitting around? Anybody planning on giving $50,000 today in the offering? Right? Yeah, never know. What was my prayer? God, give me something I can't do without you. We spoke at 2 camps, 1 or 2 churches. Next thing you knew, we had $50,000 in our pockets. We bought this land, we paid for it in cash. Just like God has shown in the dream. Now here's a picture from the road looking out at the land. You can see there's the main road here. So we own all this. The big palm tree back here, and all the way across and all the way down. And the Lord instructed us to dig a well on the property. And so we took a huge step and we began to build on the site. That well today, we have 4,000 people every month that come to that well. You're going to see in a moment here, right where we're standing. We had no idea, but right where we're standing, there's a huge multi-purpose center there now. And I remember sitting on the steps looking and watching these little kids come from 1.8 kilometers away with an empty bucket, fill up with water, put it back on their heads, and walk 1.8 kilometers back to their village. And all day long, people would come to get safe, fresh, clean drinking water. Free drinking water. And I would sit there on the steps and just cry. Because I don't know about you, but I can go to my tap. Heck, I can go to my fridge. Press a button, and like magic, safe drinking water comes. And you know what else I took for granted? And I apologize if this is a little vivid. The toilets that flush. Those are awesome. Go home after the service and flush the toilet and give thanks to God. You are kings and queens. And so to be able to be a part of what God is doing in this small way. And so here's that school. Remember I showed you the drone shot of the school. Here's some of our students. If you can't see me, there I am. There's that song, One of These Things. Like that. You know what's awesome? They don't see me as the white guy. They see me as the pastor who comes to help.
Amen.
That's it. I'm going to show you a picture later. All the kids, they love comparing our skin color. They love pulling on the hair on my arms. Even my chest hairs, they love to pull.
Yeah.
And it's awesome just to be a part of the family of God. And so this is the little school, and the inside of the classrooms are just, bamboo, dried bamboo leaves are the insulators for the walls. Very, very simple desks, concrete and mud floors. This is a typical classroom. This was our classroom at the old place. And so we decided to take a huge step of faith. Remember that big piece of land I showed you? Last year we started to build this place. So the well is just over here. And Sam and I were here with the drone, and now we have this multi-purpose center going up. And we stepped out and we said, Lord, this is going to cost probably $175,000 to build, which is very cheap to build a big building like that. But it's still a lot of money, right? And guess what? COVID hit. I couldn't travel to a single church to present the vision like I'm doing here today. By the way, I don't take this for granted. I'm so thankful that I can be here with you in this room. I'm glad you're watching online, but I'm glad that you're here in this room today. And we started to build this place, and God spoke to our hearts and said, I want you guys to put the seed money in. I want you to start the building. And at that time, It was right before COVID hit. It was after COVID hit. And we didn't know how long it was going to last. They said 2 or 3 weeks COVID, that's it. Oh, fine, we can afford to empty our seats. We just want to go back on the road in no time. And so we gave the seat money to start the building, but we couldn't finish it. You can see to the right there. Those are the offices and conference rooms and washrooms with flushing toilets. Remember? I said, Lord, I don't know how we're going to do this. On January 2nd of this year, Karen said to me, it was a few days before that, she said, Joe, there's a couple from London, not Ontario, but London in the UK. They want to have a Zoom meeting with you. And I said, oh no. I mean, what if they keep me on the line for hours? And what if it's an awkward conversation? I'm just being honest with you, okay? She said, Joe, it's easy. They don't have your phone number. They don't have your email, nothing. It's just click end, and it's over. Right? So I went into it thinking, if it's like a crazy conversation, I'm going to end it and go on with my life. Well, within seconds of talking to this couple, we just knew right away they had a great heart. They were wonderful people. And I'm going to be very careful because they never want to be, what's the word? They never want to be recognized. So this couple said to me, tell me about your vision for Liberia. I said, well, okay. We want to do this, and, we want to, get a farm, we want to do this, we want to do that. And the morning before, the Lord spoke to the wife, and in a vision came into her bedroom, and there was like blue coming out for him. And she's telling me about the vision, and I'm getting ready to hit the end button, because it's starting to go sideways, right? Jesus is in your room, and there's blue stuff coming out of him. All right. She said, the blue was like living water coming out of him. And she said, we went on your YouTube channel, we saw a video where you stopped on the roadside and you started giving out water to these little kids in the village. And the second we saw you giving them living water, God told us to support these people. And they said, how much will it cost you, Joe, to do the center? So it's going to cost a lot of money. That's not the question. How much will it cost? I said, well, we need this, we need that. We want to do the second phase. And so we started to build the second phase. Now you see it here. I think it was about $185,000 US dollars in total. And they said, we want to give the whole thing. Oh, did you hear that?
Yeah, wow.
Lord, give me a ministry I can't do without you. And when I look at this building, I don't look at it and say, look at what I did. I say, wow, look at what God did during a global pandemic. In one shot, all the money came in. So now we have a sign on the property here. We're called the Community of Hope, and we're literally on the map. If you go into Google, if you go into Waze and type in Community of Hope Liberia, it'll be a long drive from here. But it'll take you right to our site. Taxi drivers use our site as a means to locate where they are. We're 2 rows down from the Community of Hope. God has put us right in the center of one of the busiest places in the country. And He did it all by Himself. Come on, how good is God? So we have the well. We built the community center. I'll go back here for a second. You can see here in the back the foundations for something else. I'm going to get to that in a minute. But way in the back, there's another building. You can kind of see it there in the photo. I don't know what it was, sometime earlier in the year, I woke up and I went, chickens. Not chicken, like I want chicken for lunch. Chickens. Joe, I want you to buy chickens. I'm from Milton. What do I know about chickens? I know Swiss Chalet, KFC, chickens. Joe, buy chickens. So, Lord, we're going to need like $5,000 minimum to build a chicken coop. Because I wanted to buy 500 chickens. If you're going to do it, do it. So, Lord, we need $5,000 to build a chicken coop. God says, no problem, I'll give you the money. He sent people into our life. Boom, $5,000 later, we have a chicken coop. And now, this was taken a few weeks ago. I was in Liberia for September. Come on, how natural is that? They call me the chicken pasta. Not a pastor who's a chicken, but the chicken pastor. And everybody knows if they want eggs, they come to the community of hope. And now we have 600 chickens. In 2 months, when they reach full maturity, we're going to be at 13,000 eggs a month.
Wow.
Come on! Why? Lord, give me a ministry I can't do without you. And so we have a 90-10 ratio. We give away 90% of the eggs. We keep 10% of the money so we can buy more chickens, we can buy the feed, we can pay our poultry farmers, because we want sustainability. Because one day Joe's going to be gone, but we want to make sure this endures, right? So that's the model that we're doing. It's all about sustainability. And my favorite part of what I get to do is going into villages. These are our kids. We take care of about 600 kids every month worth of rice that we buy for the villages. And I'm telling you, man, it is such a blessing to be able to drive hours where nobody will go, over bridges. Oh dear Lord, thank God I'm saved. You have to be ready to meet Jesus at any moment when you're in Liberia. We were crossing over a bridge. There were 2 felled logs and a 30-foot drop to our river below. And this family was bathing in the water, waving at us, while we're trying to nail these 2 logs to get over the bridge. They said, Pastor Joe, get out of the car, walk across the log. And to drive 3 and 4 hours to get to these places to be with these kids. This is another village we went to. We bring stacks of rice. These are bales of clothing. They said in this village called Tisha Town that it was the first gift that the kids had ever received in their lives. And it was the talk of the town for weeks and weeks after we left. They said, Pastor Joe, they're still texting me saying the kids can't believe they have new clothes. You know how much it costs to buy a new outfit for a kid? $1. $1. But in this village in Tisha Town, I met this 5-year-old little girl. Everybody say hi to Loku. Loku stole my heart. The Lord said, I want you to take care of her for the rest of her life. I said, you got it, Lord. And then 500 other children came running, and he said, I want you to take care of them too. I said, no problem, Lord. God has more than enough to do what he needs to do. Amen. 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 This was taken last week of little Loku. And every village you go into, they're just so happy to see you. Look at the smiles on those faces. Anybody want to come to Liberia? Yeah? All right, I'll hook you up. This was back in one of the villages. You see, I'm Portuguese, so no applause, that's okay. I grew up always believing these were built-in utensils. Like I would see restaurants have forks and knives. I said, what are those for? The first time I met her family, we went to dinner to have pizza, and they were eating their pizza with forks and knives. So what is wrong with white people? Why are you doing this? And so I was made for Africa, because you get there, man, you use your hands, you grab the bread, you dip it in the sauce, you put it in your mouth, and they love it. When you just sit and eat and talk about life and do life, it just creates a bond like nothing else I've ever done. And so back at the community of hope, we have our well. This is a mom who came with, her baby on her back. This is very common. And the kids just love, this was after church on Sunday morning, they just love coming to play in that fresh, that clean, cold. You know how hard it is to get cold water in Liberia? On my first trip, I was such a jerk and I didn't even know it. I said, hey, can I get some ice cubes for my drink? I didn't know they spent the entire next day in town looking for a store that had enough power to freeze water, and they brought me a big block of ice, and I thought nothing of it. And I learned later how much effort and money it took to get ice in my water. So to get cold water provided for by the earth from God, whew, it's a blessing.
Amen.
This is probably my favorite picture in all of Liberia. I took the kids back all the way to the chicken coop to go inside and gather some eggs. And just walking with the kids, being there with them, it's just, I can't explain, I can't express the joy that being with these kids give me. The Lord called us to work with a blind community called FDA. There's about 100 people there. They're all blind. They all decided to move in together to try and help each other. And their kids haven't been able to go to school because they need to use the children to guide them around town so they can, what they call hustle, which is beg for money, so they can buy a cup of rice to try and feed the family that day. And so the kids have not been able to go to school. There's about 60 children in the community. And I'm thrilled to tell you, and I'll share more in just a minute, that on November 22nd, our bus is going to roll into their town, and we're going to pick up all 60 kids and take them to school every day of the week. These are my little munchkins. This is Prince and Princess. They're 9-year-old twins. And she said, "My name is Princess." I said, "What's your brother's name, Prince?" She said, "Yes." I said, "Oh, I was kidding." And here's the queen. Mom was blind in one eye. And these children, these are the kids I was telling you about. Just connecting, being human, and being able to take them to school now. Partners here in Canada have provided for their registration. It's $60 a year to send a kid for school for an entire year. $60. And real quick, I'll share with you, we're doing some ministry in some of the toughest ghettos in Liberia, where the police won't go. But there's their young lady here, her name is Niakwela. She invited me to come and we went. And this young man pulled me aside after. There's a shipping container back here. I went in there with 50 drug addicts. They sealed the door. They were shooting heroin, smoking crack cocaine, every kind of drug you can imagine. And while I was in the container, this guy pulled me aside and he said, "Please help us. We don't want to stay here." And I said, "God, can I truly love them in the same way I love myself? What wouldn't I do for myself, God? What wouldn't I do for them?" And the Lord's opening up some real doors into this community where they've trusted me as an outsider to come in. They know I'm not going to rat them out to the police. We're not going to do it. We're just there to love on them and help them get out of drugs if they want to. And real quick, I'm going to close with this because I could go on for a long time. I have no idea what time it is. I apologize if I've gone.
Years anyway, lost my back.
You what?
My back, so we're all
Oh, I got an extra hour. Great. Great.
We're Pentecostal, we don't care.
So I just wanted to remind you again, this is what it was like when we found it. In fact, it was all covered, of course, with trees, and it was like a jungle in here. And we cleared the area. And then this was our first phase, right, with a community center / church building there. And then this picture was from a few weeks ago. We go back one. There's the community center, and there's our brand new school for 420 children. Remember that prayer? God, give me something I can't do without you. Oh, I regret that sometimes. I wake up to a notice, Pastor Joe, we made a mistake in the calculations. We're $60,000 US short. The ministry won't let us open the school if we don't get so-and-so done in time. Lord, what are you going to do? because somebody had committed to give $40,000 US. That's a lot of money. And they said, we're sending you the wire today. Let us know when it comes through. And then they sent 60,000 instead. Do you understand, like, those amounts? During COVID, from people you've never met in your life, but God dropped something in their heart, and then they jump on board. And because of this, the school's going to be done, and I'm going to be there in person for the first day of class. I am so excited. And last thing, I almost had a heart attack when I pulled up into your parking lot and I saw all the school buses. The Lord said, thou shalt not cover thy neighbor's school bus. And I coveted, Mike, after we repent before communion. Because last month we got our first school bus in Liberia. And they're expensive there. They're about $30,000 US for a bus, used, shipped in from the US. And remember that couple who saw me on YouTube? Guess what? They sent the money to buy a bus. And on the last day, I was leaving on the Tuesday. On the Monday night, we finally picked up the bus and we drove it into our school parking lot. Now we can fit 90 kids in the bus, okay? So we have 360 kids. So that's 4 trips in the morning, 4 trips in the afternoon. I said, Lord, we need a second bus. Right? There's 9 out here. I said, Lord, we need 2. We need 1 more bus. And the gentleman who we bought the first bus from surprised us. And he drove a second bus to the property this past week. Don't clap yet, just have to pay for it. But he said, we love what you're doing. He left us the paperwork and the ownership for the bus. And he said, if you can give me $10,000 right now, you can pay the rest later over the next 6 months. But if you can come up with $10,000, you can have the second bus right now, and you can start using it on your first day of school, bringing kids to class. So this is what we're praying for. I know it's a big ask. $400,000 was a big ask to build those buildings, but you know what? What did you say this morning? We serve a what God? A very great God. And I believe that he who has begun this thing will be faithful to complete it. And so this is what we're asking you this morning. As a church, there's been a commitment made, and we are so grateful and so thankful. And if there's 1 person here, 2 people here, 5 people here, that God say, yeah, Joe, we love what you guys are doing. We want in. Then I want you to connect with the church. And there's going to be an opportunity to give in an offering this morning and tonight. I told Mike I would never ask for money for me. But for these precious people, I'll ask all day long with no apology. So if God puts it on your heart and you feel like you want to partner and do something, then we're going to leave that with you. So I just want to say this morning that God is good. God is faithful.
Amen.
And if he's speaking to you now you may already have a mission place that you give to. Keep giving to that missional place because they need it now more than ever. But if God is speaking to you about Liberia, then don't miss that moment because you have no idea what God may be starting in you. Amen?
Amen.
Maybe one day you'll end up on an Air France flight with me. It's only 28 hours. Relax. It's easy. 4 planes, 3 continents. No problem. You'll be there in no time. I'm joking, but we don't know what God is going to do. So I just want to thank God for the opportunity to have been able to share this with you this morning.